Probably a bad time to talk about the recovery on the back of a broad tech rally, given that we did see the start of that sector rotation overnight, and no doubt that could continue more if the market feels that it can kind of keep its pricing and breadth without the participation of big tech. But what are the implications for SoftBank? Because you weren't convinced about this recovery story.
Well, I mean, it's just SoftBank, we've been saying SoftBank is more of a punt on technology names, and that's what they've been doing. They've sunk another $20 billion in large technology names like Amazon and TSMCs and NVIDIAs of the world. And obviously, Son is the one who's calling the shots, and, he's just increased that bet. In a way, the asset sales have been going fairly smoothly. I mean, they've increased their sales to about $50 billion since March. So the asset sale program seems to be going fine, but the investments that are taking place are just back onto momentum names. So as long as the momentum names continue, as you pointed out, I mean, that, obviously that didn't work out their way overnight, but as long as that continues, then, SoftBank will be bailed out by the market. But, if you look at it from an outsider, you think, well, SoftBank is just an extension of the technology rally. As long as the technology rally continues, they should do okay. But, once that music stops, then, there's just absolutely no point of investing in SoftBank. So, obviously analysts are fairly bullish, but we're not convinced, no.
Right. So it sounds like you're saying if you have a position in SoftBank, you kind of keep it where it is. There's not much point in going overweight, underweight, taking a strong position in it either way. And if you take a look at the balance of things, if you look at SoftBank as basically a play on the components of its tech names, the risks are surely skewed more to the downside?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, what you would do with shares like SoftBank is you would short SoftBank against the portfolio of technology names you might be holding as a hedge. A lot of clients have got these positions on technologies from a bottom-up perspective rather than from a momentum point of view. While you want to protect your downside, and SoftBank has always been a good instrument to protect your downside should technology stocks, stop outperforming or start going down. I mean, we know the valuations are fairly high, and if the reflationary trade goes back on because of any vaccine hopes or, the possibility of the infection rates, start being curbed, then, yeah, I mean, the SoftBank is definitely not the stock to be in.
So, Amir, could Masayoshi Son, however, surprise you? Is there another rabbit he can pull out of his hat that will keep him on top, keep his investments going?
Well, he just continues to double down on technology names, so I'm not quite sure, how he's going to surprise me. I mean, the size of the bets are a surprise. I mean, he's put another $20 billion in these names right at the top of the cycle, wherever that's, I mean, might not be at the, we might not be at the peak today, but we're very close to the peak. So I'm somewhat baffled how he could surprise us. Obviously, he has more asset sales to go if the Chinese regulators allow ARM to be sold to NVIDIA, then we're talking about another $40 billion on top of the $50 billion that's already sold in terms of assets. Stock buybacks have been the order of the day for SoftBank, which kind of dismisses the whole idea that SoftBank is going to be taken private, because you wouldn't sell all these assets and buy back shares and, and having seen your share price double up, then you wouldn't take it private. I mean, that's just silly, right? So, I mean, that's just, I think that's just speculation and Son trying to kind of keep its share price up when they're not doing the buybacks. But the other thing about the buybacks that nobody mentions is that, we're not really seeing any of these shares being retired. So these shares are just being parked in treasuries and at some stage could be used as collateral against loans to speculate in the market again. Mm-hmm. So we're not even convinced about the buybacks. To be fair, because they're not being retired.
Well, if this whole stock market global wave continues to crest, including in Japan, do you think Masayoshi Son will be carried higher with it, at least for a while?
Not in the markets like today, no. I think SoftBank, as I said, will be sold off in days when, you've got the value names, reflationary names, going back to work kind of names, come back away from tech. Then no, I don't think SoftBank will participate in a market rally. No, but obviously, if the market becomes, at least the economic outlook becomes grim, and people start concentrating their bets again on technology and staying at home stocks, then yeah, sure, SoftBank should outperform. But yeah, I mean, we would be more willing sellers if this kind of market that we've seen overnight continues, and we would be telling clients to use SoftBank as an investment, as a hedge, to short SoftBank against the portfolio of technology stocks that you might hold.
Do you have any more expectations for what Vision Fund 2 might look like?
Well, yeah, I mean, they're smaller bets. Obviously, they're, at an earlier stage, it seems, of like a lot of venture capital or private equity funds, depending on how you look at it, because it changes day by day exactly what the strategy is. But yeah, it looks like he's taking a smaller bets for the Vision Fund, but for its own investments, it's taking a bigger bets. So I'm not quite convinced that Son has learned the lessons of the last year or so. With the obviously there's been some fortunate turnaround situations with the likes of Uber, and which is obviously a reflationary trade. If the economy does turn around, then Uber is definitely one of those names that could have a big rally. But on the other hand, he's just putting more and more money into the likes of Amazon and Zoom and Nvidia and TSMC, and these stocks have been the best performing stocks of the last few years. So I'm not. As I said, I don't see Son's investment as being particularly savvy. It's momentum trades. He thinks the momentum will continue. So, if you believe that, then yeah, you'll hold on to SoftBank. But there's no particular reason why you would really go out of your way to overweight SoftBank shares, which has been more or less held up by its own share buybacks.